Good morning, everybody, and anyone who's watching, whether you're watching live or on catch-up. I'm Jeff Stewart, singer, singing teacher, and choral conductor, and I run They Shall Laugh and Sing. And I'm here today with my guest, Eleanor Pennell-Briggs, who is a expert in somatics, as well as being a very, very fine singer. Welcome, Eleanor. Lovely to have you on. Tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into singing, and where your career has taken you so far.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Well, I've always sung. I grew up in a very musical family, and both my parents were singers. And in fact, my dad was a choral conductor.
Really?
So I spent all of my childhood in choirs and singing and playing instruments and stuff. And I went to music college as an oboist. I was very much wanting to be an orchestral musician, but I was still singing in the background, and I sounded like a choir boy until I was about 26. So there was no one would take me seriously as a singer until my late 20s. And then my voice started to develop a bit more, and I started doing opera.
What caused the change?
Pardon?
What caused the change?
Do you know, I think I was just a late developer in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like that. There wasn't anything particular. I was working with singing teachers, and I was working from the age of 18. I was singing in churches in London as kind of a little side hustle, make some extra money while I was at college. And it was only once my voice had started to develop a bit more and blossom that actually I started exploring a bit more opera and that kind of thing. And that's what I've been doing really since then. So now I work at the Royal Opera House, and I do a lot of freelance choral things with BBC Singers, Academy of Ancient Music, those sorts of groups, and then lots of concert work.
Lovely. That all sounds great. It must be so exciting being on with some of the people that you will sing with at the Royal Opera.
Oh my God, yes. It's honestly, it's so exciting. It's also really inspiring being that close to people who are like really the experts in their craft, and you just see what they're doing and how they're approaching things, how they approach rehearsals. Come off stage after a performance. Like last night we were doing a performance of Eugene Onegin, and the playing Lenski is absolutely incredible. And of us in the chorus come off stage and we're just like, right, need a singing lesson, need to know how he's doing it, need to replicate it.
It is amazing, isn't it? People have so many different ways of going about things, but when you see someone who gets it right, you think, oh my God. And see that close firsthand, it's really brilliant. So I first came across you through the business group that we're in with Sarah Eden. And I've got to be honest, I'd never heard of somatics. So and I've had to look it up. So could you tell us what somatics is about?
I can, yes. It's actually fairly simple. So the word somatic just means referring to the body, just means of the body, right? And it's from the Greek word soma, which just means the body. The point of somatics is that we have kind of gotten to a place in our society where we think of the mind and body as completely separate. And so when people have issues, psychological issues or mental health issues, they'll go to talk therapy and they'll talk about their problems and very often get some relief. But for people who have experienced trauma, there often isn't a relief that comes with talking, or there's some relief, but it never really kind of gets to the root cause. It never really fixes the issues. With somatics, with a somatic approach to therapy, what we're really doing is looking at the biology. We're looking at what is your nervous system doing. Our nervous system is the part of us that gives us those survival responses. So people listening might have heard of fight, flight, freeze. Maybe they've heard of fawn. These are the reactions, the names that we give to the reactions that we have to things in the environment around us that have been perceived as a threat by our nervous system, right? And our nervous system is always looking out for anything that might be a threat to us. It sees the world as life or death, and its only job really is to keep us alive. So it uses these reactions to counteract the threats that it sees in the environment. so that we have the best possible chance at survival. So that might be running away, it might be defending ourselves, it might be playing dead, all of these sorts of things that we see with fight, flight, or freeze. The issue comes in when we are unable to fully process those survival responses, because those survival responses come with a set of sensations in the body, physiological changes that happen. So a rush of adrenaline, your digestive system shutting down, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that is the most modern part that governs consciousness and logic and being rational, all of these sorts of things. That part of the brain shuts down. We go into our very animalistic, very primal instincts. And sometimes that survival energy, that huge surge of survival energy, can get stuck. And then we see symptoms, post-traumatic symptoms. So we see people with lots of anxiety, people with depression, people who are hypervigilant, who maybe have an exaggerated startle response to anything that, is an unexpected. We all know somebody who jumps at the slightest thing.
Yeah.
It's an exaggerated startle response, it's really common. And we live in a society that is designed to trigger our survival responses. So our nervous system is constantly trying to protect us against a world that is essentially designed to be a threat, really.
Yeah.
So your nervous system doesn't know the difference between being chased by a tiger and getting an email from your boss saying we need to talk. It's the same thing. And logically we look at those two examples, we think, well, they're completely different, but your nervous system doesn't know the difference.
So in theory, if you get a letter that looks like it might be official and you're scared of that sort of thing, that's going to do the same thing to you.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is that people end up living their entire lives at kind of a steady lower level of activation, we call it. Their nervous system is on, essentially. They're in a form of fight, flight, or freeze all the time. They never fully calm down from it. And actually, that is really tiring. It's knackering for your system. Exhausting the body. So much energy goes into keeping in that state of activation. So in a somatic approach to therapy, in somatic work, what we're really doing is working with your nervous system. We're looking at what is your nervous system responding to and why. What are the particular set of survival responses physiologically that your body is having? Because although there is kind of an umbrella of them, for each person it's going to be slightly different. So we look at what's actually happening for you, for your unique nervous system. And then we work out, well, how can we release some of the survival energy that's stuck, allow what needs to be completed to be completed. So that might be a biological process, perhaps a defensive gesture. Perhaps it's a part of fight, flight, or freeze that's gotten stuck, and that it works in kind of cycles. So we want to complete that cycle. So we go in and we kind of tinker around and we have a little look, and then we help to release whatever is stuck and teach the body that actually it has more capacity than it thinks it has. Every time we release a little bit of this stuck survival energy, we are creating more capacity, more tolerance for stress. So then at a day-to-day level, you're able to cope with more stress. Maybe the email from your boss doesn't send you into a complete overwhelm the way it used to do. And you're able to also calm down more, to relax, to allow yourself to rest, which very often is the other side of the coin to people who are living in a constant state of survival, that they are unable to relax, and the body can't get the benefit of rest in that way.
Gosh, that sounds absolutely incredible. How did you come to it?
Well, I came to it as a client first. So I'm very open about the mental health issues that I've had in the past. I had some traumatic events in my teens, and then in my early 20s I was really struggling with what I now know was PTSD. And I really was just bouncing off the walls in terms of my behavior, because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And I had all of these symptoms of PTSD that I didn't know were PTSD. And for those of you listening who aren't sure what PTSD is, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Most people have heard of it in regards to war veterans, so soldiers coming back from the front and, you know, shell shock, that kind of thing. But it's a very common thing for people to experience, even who haven't been in a war zone. So I was experiencing all of these symptoms like nightmares, flashbacks, real anxiety around anything where I had to be in a vulnerable position. So, for example, being on stage as a singer, that was one. You know, we feel vulnerable every time we open our mouths and sing. Yeah. So that was a real trigger. Everything around me was triggering. My nervous system was on like hyper alert.
Yeah.
In the world, you know, my relationships were affected. Everything really was affected. And I had a breakdown in 2017. And although it was a painful thing to go through, I can look back now and say, well, actually, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it set me on this path of trying to understand myself, trying to understand why I was the way I was, and searching for something that was better, because I felt like, surely this isn't all life is. Surely it doesn't have to feel like this, you know? Yeah. People talking about these wonderful experiences and loving their lives. And I was like, well, I've never felt that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I know. And I kind of feel, I can feel some emotion coming up, even just talking about it. Yeah. But that was my reality for a very long time. And so after the breakdown, I was kind of exploring all different types of therapy, different maybe more kind of esoteric approaches, alternative therapies, complementary therapies. And I finally landed on somatic experiencing. And from the first session, I knew, even just like the first chat with the therapist that I ended up with, and I'm still with him years later. Yeah. I knew that this was the thing that was actually going to shift something, because it was working with where the actual problems were, which was within my body, within my nervous system. You know, yeah. Trauma is, we like to think of it as a psychological thing. Actually, no, that's not right. Trauma is physiological. You know? Right. Trauma isn't in the event that happened to you. Say you were in a car crash, for example, you might say, oh, well, that was the trauma. That was the trauma was in the event. No, actually, the trauma is not in the event. The trauma is in your body's adaptation to the event. Right. You know, and the wonderful thing about somatics is that when we are looking at this stuff, actually it removes the need for the story. We don't need to keep talking about it. You can keep talking about it, because sometimes that is a piece that needs to be worked through. But actually what we're really doing is just looking at, well, how did your body adapt to that? Yeah. And yeah, it was when I started doing that work that I really started to see changes. And then it was small shifts, and then suddenly it was like, oh, I'm making different decisions now about the people who are in my life, and I'm making different decisions about work, and I'm setting boundaries, and I'm feeling my confidence growing because of that. And you know, it was like a ripple effect. It kind of went out from this inner work. It's an amazing process. And now I'm in, you know, this really privileged position of guiding my clients through the same thing. And it's cool to watch.